What if I told you some of heavy metal's loudest legends didn't go out in flames on stage, but in ways so shocking they still haunt fans today? These were the voices that shook arenas, the rebels who lived fast, loud, and fearless. They looked untouchable, almost immortal, wrapped in leather, sweat, and screaming guitars. But when the lights went out, reality hit hard. Sudden accidents, dark secrets, silent battles nobody saw coming. Their music still pounds through speakers, but the truth about their final moments often gets ignored. Today, you're uncovering 15 of the most shocking heavy metal icon deaths that changed everything forever. 15. Quorthon. Quorthon, born Thomas Burya Forsberg, was not just another metal musician. He was the mind behind Bathory, the band that quietly reshaped extreme metal and later gave birth to Viking metal. Long before the world understood his influence, Quorthon was already building a darker, colder sound that felt ancient, raw, and dangerous. His music did not chase trends, it created them. That is why his death remains one of the most shocking moments in heavy metal history. In the early 2000s, Quorthon had stepped away from constant touring and interviews. He was private, almost mysterious, choosing to let the music speak instead of his face. Then, without warning, news broke that he had died suddenly at the age of 38. There was no long illness made public, no farewell tour, no final statement. Reports pointed to heart failure, but the lack of clear details only deepened the shock. One day, he was a living legend, working quietly behind the scenes. The next day, he was gone. The heavy metal world froze. Fans struggled to process how someone so influential could vanish so suddenly. Bands across black metal, death metal, and Viking metal openly admitted they would not exist without Bathory. Albums that once sounded strange and extreme now felt prophetic. Lyrics about ancient battles, death, and destiny took on a haunting new weight after his passing. Quorthon never chased fame, yet his death echoed louder than many stars who lived under constant spotlight. He left behind a body of work that still feels timeless, brutal, and deeply emotional. His absence created a silence that no band has truly filled, proving that some legends do not fade slowly. They disappear in an instant, leaving the entire genre forever changed. Before moving on, take a quick second to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. Stories like this deserve to be remembered, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. 14. Joey Jordison. Joey Jordison was the heartbeat of Slipknot and one of the most respected drummers in heavy metal. From the moment Slipknot exploded onto the scene, his speed, control, and aggressive style set a new standard. He was not just fast, he was precise, creative, and terrifyingly powerful behind the kit. Many drummers spent years trying to copy his footwork and stamina, but very few ever came close. Behind the scenes, Joey was quietly fighting serious health problems. In the mid-2000s, he was diagnosed with transverse myelitis, a neurological condition that affected his ability to walk and play. For a drummer known for superhuman endurance, this was devastating. Fans did not know the full story at the time. When he left Slipknot, rumors spread and confusion followed, but Joey stayed mostly silent, choosing privacy over explanation. In 2021, news broke that Joey Jordison had died in his sleep at the age of 46. The announcement came suddenly and without many details, which made the loss feel even heavier. Tributes poured in from across the metal world. Bands, drummers, and fans all spoke about how Joey inspired them to pick up sticks for the first time. His death felt especially shocking because Joey still felt young, creative, and full of potential. He left behind a legacy built on intensity, innovation, and discipline. Even today, modern metal drumming carries his fingerprints, a reminder that some rhythms never truly stop, even when the drummer is gone. 13. Chris Cornell. Chris Cornell possessed one of the most powerful and emotional voices ever to cross heavy metal and hard rock. As the frontman of Soundgarden, he helped define a darker, heavier sound that stood apart from polished mainstream rock. His voice could roar with rage one moment and break hearts the next. It felt raw, honest, and painfully human. Despite his success, Chris struggled privately for years. Depression and addiction followed him even during his highest moments. Fans saw sold-out shows and legendary performances, but behind closed doors, the weight never fully lifted. He continued to create, tour, and push forward, giving no clear signs that the end was near. In 2017, after a show in Detroit, Chris Cornell was found dead in his hotel room at the age of 52. The news sent shockwaves through music communities around the world. The timing made it even more devastating. He had just performed. His voice was still strong. His career felt alive and active. The shock came from the contrast. A man who sounded so powerful on stage was quietly losing a battle inside. Tributes from musicians, fans, and friends poured in, all speaking about his kindness, intelligence, and unmatched talent. His death forced many to look deeper at mental health in the music industry. Chris Cornell left behind songs that still feel painfully close, filled with emotion, darkness, and beauty. His silence remains one of the most heartbreaking losses in heavy metal history. 12. Ronnie James Dio. Ronnie James Dio was more than a singer. He was a symbol of heavy metal itself. From his work with Rainbow to Black Sabbath and later Dio, his voice became the sound of fantasy, power, and rebellion. Strong, clear, and commanding, Ronnie proved that metal did not need to scream to be heavy. His presence alone could shake an arena. For decades, Ronnie seemed unstoppable. Even as younger bands emerged, his voice remained strong, his performances confident, and his connection with fans deeply personal. That is why the news of his illness came as a shock. In the late 2000s, Ronnie revealed he had been diagnosed with stomach cancer. Fans hoped for recovery, believing his strength would carry him through. In 2010, Ronnie James Dio passed away at the age of 67. Heavy metal felt quieter overnight. Tributes flooded in from every corner of the genre. Even musicians outside metal acknowledged his influence. The iconic hand gesture, the themes of courage and myth, and the unforgettable voice all became symbols of his lasting impact. His death was shocking, not because it was sudden, but because it felt impossible to imagine metal without him. Ronnie had been there for generations. He guided fans through dark times with songs about strength and survival. Even after his passing, his voice continues to echo through speakers worldwide, reminding everyone that legends may fall, but their sound never truly fades. 11. Bon Scott. Bon Scott was the wild spirit behind AC/DC during its most dangerous and exciting years. His voice was gritty, fearless, and full of attitude. He did not just sing the songs, he lived them. With his raw energy and rebellious charm, Bon helped turn AC/DC into a force that could not be ignored. By the late 1970s, the band was climbing fast. Albums were selling, crowds were growing, and the future looked unstoppable. Bon's personality became central to AC/DC's identity. He was loud, funny, reckless, and magnetic. That made the shock even greater when tragedy struck. In 1980, Bon Scott died in London at the age of 33. The cause was acute alcohol poisoning after a night of heavy drinking. The news stunned the music world. AC/DC had been on the edge of global domination, and suddenly their frontman was gone. Many believed the band could not continue. Losing Bon felt like losing the soul of the group. Yet his death also became one of the most haunting turning points in heavy metal history. His final recordings gained a deeper meaning, filled with energy that now felt painfully finite. Bon Scott's death remains shocking, because it came at the exact moment success arrived. His voice captured a time, a lifestyle, and an attitude that still defines heavy metal rebellion today. 10. Alexi Laiho. Alexi Laiho was the face, the sound, and the fire behind Children of Bodom. From the very start, his playing felt unreal, fast, melodic, and razor-sharp. His guitar work inspired a whole generation of metal musicians. Alexi made extreme metal feel exciting, technical, and fun at the same time. On stage, he looked unstoppable, smiling while tearing through riffs most players could barely follow. Behind that confidence, though, Alexi was struggling. Years of heavy touring, alcohol abuse, and physical strain slowly took their toll. His health declined over time, but he kept pushing forward, driven by music and loyalty to his fans. Even when Children of Bodom ended, he continued making music, refusing to fully step away. In 2020, Alexi Laiho died at the age of 41. The cause was linked to long-term health issues tied to alcohol-related damage. The news hit hard because he was still viewed as young, still creative, still essential to modern metal. Many fans believed he had more chapters left to write. Tributes came from across the metal world. Guitarists openly credited him for shaping their style. Fans shared stories of how his music helped them through difficult times. His death felt like watching a flame burn too bright for too long. Alexi Laiho's legacy lives in blistering solos, unforgettable melodies, and a reminder that talent alone cannot protect someone from self-destruction. His loss remains one of the most painful in modern heavy metal. 9. Paul Gray. Paul Gray was the foundation of Slipknot. As the band's bassist and main songwriter, he helped shape their dark, chaotic sound from the very beginning. While others wore masks that drew attention, Paul stayed quiet, focused, and deeply committed to the music. Without him, Slipknot would not have existed in the same form. In 2010, Paul Gray was found dead in a hotel room in Iowa at the age of 38. The cause was later confirmed as an accidental overdose involving prescription drugs. The shock was immediate and overwhelming. Slipknot was still active. Paul was still writing, still touring, still creating. Fans struggled to understand how someone so calm and grounded could be lost so suddenly. His bandmates were devastated, public memorials were held, and emotional tributes poured in from across the world. For Slipknot, the loss was not just personal. It changed the band forever. Paul Gray's death exposed the darker side of life behind the mask. Fame, pressure, and constant touring can hide deep struggles. His absence left a hole that could never be filled. Even years later, Slipknot performances carry his memory. Every heavy bass line and dark melody traces back to his influence, making his death one of the most shocking and heartbreaking moments in modern heavy metal. 8. Lemmy Kilmister. Lemmy Kilmister was supposed to live forever. As the frontman of Motorhead, he became a symbol of pure heavy metal attitude. His gravelly voice, thunderous bass, and fearless lifestyle made him feel untouchable. Lemmy did not follow the rules. He made his own, and metal followed him. For decades, he toured non-stop, living hard and loud. Fans believed nothing could slow him down. That illusion shattered in 2015 when Lemmy revealed he had been diagnosed with cancer. Just days later, he passed away at the age of 70. The speed of his decline stunned everyone. One moment he was performing. Next, the metal world was mourning. Tributes came from musicians across all genres, proving how far his influence reached. Lemmy was not just a metal icon, he was mental. His death felt unreal because he embodied endurance. Songs like Ace of Spades became anthems of rebellion and survival. Losing him felt like losing the spirit of heavy metal itself. Lemmy Kilmister left behind a legacy built on honesty, volume, and zero compromise. His passing marked the end of an era, a reminder that even legends who seem immortal are still human. 7. Peter Steele. Peter Steele, the towering frontman of Type O Negative, was a walking contradiction. His deep voice sounded dark and intimidating, yet his personality was often sensitive, sarcastic, and emotional. Through gothic metal anthems, he explored love, depression, obsession, and loss in ways few metal artists dared. For years, Peter openly battled mental health issues and substance abuse. He did not hide his flaws. Instead, he poured them into his music. Fans connected deeply with his honesty, finding comfort in songs that embraced sadness instead of avoiding it. In 2010, Peter Steele died at the age of 48 from heart failure. The news came suddenly and quietly. There was no long build-up, no farewell. He was simply gone. For fans, the shock came from how personal his music felt. Losing him felt like losing someone who understood pain without judgment. Type O Negative's music took on a haunting new meaning after his death. Lyrics once seen as dramatic now felt prophetic. Peter Steele's passing highlighted how fragile even the strongest-looking figures can be. He left behind music that still resonates with those who feel out of place, proving that vulnerability can be just as powerful as aggression in heavy metal. 6. Dead Per Yngve Olin, known to the world as Dead, was the vocalist of Mayhem and one of the most unsettling figures in extreme metal. From the start, he did not treat black metal as music alone. For him, it was a state of mind rooted in death, isolation, and despair. His stage presence was terrifying, often involving self-harm, animal carcasses, and a performance style meant to make audiences uncomfortable rather than entertained. Dead struggled deeply with depression and feelings of detachment from life. Friends later described him as someone who felt more connected to death than to the living world. His lyrics, behavior, and personal writings reflected a constant obsession with dying. This was not an act. It was his reality. In 1991, Dead died by suicide at the age of 22. He cut his wrists and throat, then used a firearm, leaving behind a note that chillingly treated his death as an afterthought. The discovery of his body became one of the darkest stories in metal history, especially due to the disturbing actions that followed within the band's inner circle. The shock was not just his death, but how closely it mirrored the darkness he expressed in his art. The Dead's passing cemented black metal's reputation as a genre born from real pain, not performance. His legacy remains controversial, disturbing, and deeply tragic, marking one of the most unsettling losses heavy metal has ever witnessed. 5. Euronymous Øystein Arseth, known as Euronymous, was the guitarist of Mayhem and a central figure in the Norwegian black metal movement. He was not just a musician, he was a gatekeeper, promoter, and provocateur who shaped the scene's ideology and image. Through his record label and record shop, he pushed black metal toward darker themes, extreme beliefs, and total rejection of mainstream culture. Euronymous thrived on chaos and controversy. He encouraged rivalry, extremism, and confrontation, believing that black metal should be dangerous and uncompromising. This mindset helped grow the scene, but it also created real-world tension that spiraled out of control. In 1993, Euronymous was murdered at his apartment in Oslo at the age of 25. He was stabbed multiple times by another musician from the same scene. The crime sent shockwaves far beyond Norway. Heavy metal had crossed a line from shock value into real bloodshed. The murder exposed how fragile and volatile the underground scene had become. What once felt rebellious and symbolic suddenly carried permanent consequences. Euronymous' death marked the end of black metal's innocence, if it ever had any. His legacy remains deeply divisive. Some credit him for shaping an entire genre. Others see his death as proof of how obsession and extremism can destroy everything they touch. 4. Chuck Schuldiner. Chuck Schuldiner was the founder of death and the undisputed pioneer of death metal. At a time when heavy metal was still evolving, Chuck pushed it into darker, heavier, and more complex territory. His songwriting combined brutality with intelligence, blending technical skill and thoughtful lyrics in a way that reshaped extreme metal forever. Unlike many figures in the genre, Chuck avoided controversy and chaos. He was known as quiet, kind, and deeply focused on music. His passion was not image or shock, it was evolution. With each album he refined death metal, turning it into something sophisticated without losing its raw power. In the late 1990s, Chuck was diagnosed with brain cancer. The news devastated fans, but hope remained. He continued working on music while undergoing treatment, supported by the metal community. Sadly, the financial burden and the aggressive nature of the illness made recovery impossible. In 2001, Chuck Schuldiner died at the age of 34. His death shocked the metal world not because of a scandal, but because of unfairness. A man who avoided self-destruction, violence, and excess was taken far too soon. Chuck's passing left a permanent void. His influence lives on in countless bands, proving that true innovation does not need chaos to be powerful. 3. Randy Rhoads. Randy Rhoads was changing the sound of heavy metal at lightning speed. As Ozzy Osbourne's guitarist, he blended classical music influence with aggressive metal riffs, creating a style that felt both elegant and explosive. His playing was clean, emotional, and fearless. Many believed he was only getting started, even as his name was already becoming legendary. In 1982, while on tour in Florida, Randy's life ended in a bizarre and tragic accident. During a break, a small plane piloted by a member of the touring crew began making low passes over the band's tour bus. The situation turned fatal when the aircraft clipped the bus and crashed into a nearby building. Randy Rhoads was only 25 years old. The shock was overwhelming. There was no warning, no illness, no slow decline. One moment he was preparing for another show. Next, heavy metal had lost one of its brightest minds. Fans struggled to accept how quickly everything ended. Randy had spoken about wanting to study classical guitar and expand his musical range even further. His death froze his legacy in time. Every note he recorded now feels precious, like a glimpse of something unfinished. Guitarists still study his work, not just for technique, but for emotion and structure. Randy Rhoads remains a symbol of unrealized potential, a reminder that even the most gifted lives can be taken in an instant. 2. Dimebag Darrell. Dimebag Darrell was the soul of Pantera and one of the most influential metal guitarists of all time. His playing was heavy, sharp, and instantly recognizable. More than that, he was known for his warmth, humor, and deep connection with fans. Dimebag made extreme metal feel human. On December 8, 2004, during a performance in Columbus, Ohio, the unthinkable happened. While playing on stage with his band Damageplan, Dimebag was shot and killed by an armed attacker. The violence unfolded in front of a live audience, turning a concert into a nightmare. He was 38 years old. The metal world was left in disbelief. Concerts were meant to be safe spaces for expression and unity. That sense of security was shattered in seconds. Musicians and fans everywhere felt vulnerable. Tributes flooded in from every corner of the music industry, all expressing shock and grief. Dimebag's death was especially painful because of who he was. He represented joy, passion, and loyalty to metal culture. His riffs powered generations of bands, but his personality made him unforgettable. Even today, his loss feels unreal. His sound lives on through Pantera's music, reminding listeners that talent can be loud, loving, and brutally honest, all at once. 1. Cliff Burton. Cliff Burton was not just Metallica's bassist. He was their secret weapon. Classically trained, wildly creative, and fearless in experimentation, Cliff helped shape the band's early sound. His bass lines did not sit quietly in the background. They led, twisted, and challenged what heavy metal could be. In 1986, while touring in Sweden, Metallica's tour bus skidded on icy roads and flipped. Cliff Burton was thrown from the vehicle and killed instantly. He was only 24 years old. The rest of the band survived, but nothing was ever the same. The shock ran deep. Metallica was rising fast, and Cliff was central to their identity. Fans mourned not just a musician, but a future that would never happen. His death forced the band to confront loss at the very start of their global journey. Cliff's influence still echoes through Metallica's music. His approach to bass inspired countless players to think beyond limits. The albums he worked on are now considered landmarks in heavy metal history. Cliff Burton's death remains one of the most devastating moments in metal. It proved that even at the edge of greatness, fate can intervene without mercy. These stories prove one thing loud and clear: even the biggest metal icons weren't invincible. Behind the amps, the crowds, and the chaos were real people facing brutal endings that still leave fans shaken today. Their music lives on, but their final moments deserve to be remembered, not forgotten. If these shocking deaths surprised you, imagine the stories still hiding in the shadows of rock history. So before you head out, hit subscribe, smash that like button, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what comes next. Which heavy metal death shocker shocked you the most?